Hi, I'm Daniel Andrews, owner and creator of AndrewsFootball.com. Now, if you're new to my channel, there's this button right down here. See it? See it? Bam! Hit that button. Become one of the greatest people on planet Earth. My channel is scientifically proven to make all your wildest dreams come true. So here's what I'm doing. I'm breaking down all 32 teams before preseason starts. I break down what I like. I break down what I don't like, but stick around to the end where I break down the Vegas over/under and if you should put action down on the Carolina Panthers. So let's just jump right in. What do I like about the Carolina Panthers? Well, I like their draft. All right. Now, attached in the description are my mock drafts because originally I had them take in Greg Little in round one. Then I went ahead and I got some awesome feedback from that video where one of the guys is like, they're probably going to do pass rusher instead. And I was like, you know what? Let me look at this a little more carefully. Hey, you know what? You're going against Drew Brees and Matt Ryan, two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Maybe you should go pass rusher. So I went ahead and changed it to Montez Sweat because I was thinking with Peppers retiring, and I'm going to talk some more about Peppers here in a bit. I mean, I can't really talk about how good of a player Julius Peppers is. You go with another freak of nature athlete like Montez Sweat, but instead they went with Brian Burns. Now, here's the thing about Brian Burns versus Montez Sweat, and I'm not going to break down every player in the draft, but here's the thing. If you had to give me one guy who get after the quarterback, it's Josh Allen number one, but Brian Burns would be number two. So as where the Carolina Panthers were picking at, they got great value, all right? Because bottom line, they needed a pass rusher. Well, they got the second best pass rusher in the draft. Now, if you're asking me, give me a guy who could just get after the passer. That's it. Josh Allen and Brian Burns. All right, Josh Allen was gone at 7. Brian Burns, great fit right here. It's good value. But what I really like is Greg Little in the second round, and I'm going to talk about this in other videos because I think there's a lot of NFL teams that really whiffed on Greg Little. I was doing some research on this video. I didn't even realize this, but he played on the same high school team that Kyler Murray played. Can you imagine how good that team is? They have Greg Little and Kyler Murray on your high school team. Actually, the other tackle, I think it's Bobby Evans. He's playing at Oklahoma right now as a junior. He's probably going to be a first-round pick next year. So that team was loaded, and I'm going to stop talking about that. But I could rant on that for a while, but I love these two picks right here because Greg Little's a guy who I really believe should have gone in the first round because I think this is a plug-and-play guy. This is a 5-star athlete coming out of college who ended up being a freshman starter at left tackle at Ole Miss, an SEC school. So he went against SEC competition. So I really thought that this was the guy who should have gone earlier in the draft. Now, most mock drafts had him going in the second round, but this is a guy who's a plug-and-play guy. Now, our lads in ESPN don't have him starting, but eventually he's going to be a starter either on the left or the right side, and you're going to have Tyler Moton, the 2017 second-round pick, either left starter or right starter. Now, if I'm Carolina, I put Little on the left side, I put Moton on the right side, and the reason why I do this is because Moton was a second-round pick in 2017. You put him on the left side, and he does well, you're going into 2020, and you have to give him a lot of money. You don't have to give him nearly as much money if you put him on the right side, and then you got Little on the left side under a second-round contract for the next couple years. Now, keep in mind, if Moton's head and shoulders better than Greg Little on the left side, and it's a very noticeable difference, then put Moton on the left side. Go ahead, protect your quarterback. That's what you got him to do, put Little on the right. I don't think that's how it's going to work. I think you'll have Little eventually. This season will be the starter on the left side. Moton will be a starter on the right side. Excellent bookend tackles. Also, another thing I liked is the Will Grier pick in the third round. I'm going to talk about that a little later on in the video, but your last 4 picks were all from SEC schools. Now, I don't know if that was done on purpose or not, but I really like this, okay? Now, one thing that you have to realize is that SEC, I don't care who you are, what fan of a college team you are, the SEC is the best college football. It is. They got players on basically every single school that are going to be in the NFL. So if you play in the SEC, you're going against future NFL players almost on a weekly basis. All right. And then, Christian Miller in the 4th round. This is a guy, even if he doesn't start, is going to provide excellent depth, especially since you're switching that 3-4 type of defense. Jordan Scarlett, running back in the 5th round. This is a guy who can help spell McCaffrey. I'm going to talk about more McCaffrey in just a second here. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know how well Dennis Daly did. He's a 6th-round pick out of a South Carolina offensive tackle, or actually a good one I'm a little familiar with. But these are guys that may or may not make the team, but more than likely, because they're from SEC schools, they're able to contribute more in camp and have a good chance of making the team, even if they're not starters. Elijah Holyfield, free agent out of Georgia. Excellent chance to make the team. Different type of player than McCaffrey, which is the second thing I really like. Is actually funny. I had somebody turn this on to me. I had a former co-worker, Tommy, I'm giving you a little shout out here because I know how much you like the Panthers. He turned me on to something called Flex Friday, where the Carolina Panthers all, take pictures of them, working out. McCaffrey is sizably bigger. He looks like he put on about 20 pounds. And what's funny is because the first thing that I thought of was North Turner, who was the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys when they won the Super Bowls in 92 and 93. Emmitt Smith did the same thing. Emmitt Smith came out of Florida. He was like 195, 199, put on about 20 pounds of muscle almost immediately. And those Super Bowl years, he had 59 and 57 receptions. And keep in mind, 57 receptions, that was only in 13 starts, 14 games. Remember, 93 he had that holdout. Look it up for yourself. But bottom line, I know that 59 and 57 is not nearly as much as the 107 McCaffrey had, but this is a different type of game in the early 90s where you ran the ball more. But bottom line, what they're doing is they're doing a lot of the same things that Emmitt Smith did with McCaffrey. They're going to have him bulk up. He's going to have more of the load. Keep in mind, he had, I think it was 217 carries, 107 receptions. I think that's going to increase, but I think his reception total is going to stay around 100. So they're going to ask him to have an additional, I'm going to say about 50 carries, 50 touches this season, because they're trying to get him to do basically the offense, instead of being revolving around Cam running and passing, it's going to be more around McCaffrey running and receiving. And I really like that because, hey, you know what? I don't want my quarterback who's coming off of surgery, who's now over 30, to be running the ball 10, 20 times a game. That I never liked that at all. And I'm going to touch base on Cam Newton here in a bit. But so I really like the fact that you have Ed McCaffrey, who's wanting to bulk up, who's wanting to be a bigger part of the offense. And I see a lot of similarities between McCaffrey and Emmitt Smith. That's high praise. Yes, I think that there's a chance he could end up being that good. All right. A third thing I like about the Carolina Panthers is I like the free agent signings. I'm not going to touch base on all of them, but three big ones I do want to touch base on. Matt Paradis, the center out of Denver. As a Chiefs fan, get him out of my division. But this is huge, all right, because this guy's going to help both your running game and your passing game. Really, really good free agent signing. And I also like the McCoy and Irvin signings more because you got them from divisional rivals. Now, McCoy's been with Tampa Bay for a long time. Irvin is bounced around the league, but he was with Atlanta last year. Now, keep in mind, both Atlanta and Tampa Bay are going underneath coaching changes, so you're not going to get exactly inside information, but you're getting a look from players that played against you, and I think that's really key. Plus, both these guys are going to help in your pass rush, which is something that you really need help in. I mean, that's why you drafted Brian Burns in the first round to begin with. He had 35 sacks last year, and you're playing against two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That's not good, so get that fixed. So kind of to recap, what I like about the Carolina Panthers, I love the draft. All right, I think they had an excellent draft. Brian Burns, excellent pass rusher. Greg Little, I think, will eventually be the starter on the left side. Plus, you drafted Will Grier in the third round. We'll talk about him a little more here in a bit. Plus, You also get 4 players from the SEC. I think that those guys are going to be able to help with depth and probably not going to be starting, but depth's important. You want to build your depth through the draft, not through free agency. It's something I probably should talk about a little more later on, but that's all I'm going to recap on right now. Now, things I don't like. I'm going to just be blunt here, and I don't like doing this, but I'm not a Cam Newton fan. I'll never forget, I'm a Chiefs season ticket holder, okay? 2012, the Chiefs went 2-14. A horrible year. They ended up firing the coach, having the number 1 pick overall. One of their wins was against the Carolina Panthers, and it was the only win at Arrowhead that year. Now, I sit on the opposing bench, or the opposing side, all right? So I get to see the opposing bench. Now, I got to watch Peyton Manning and Phillip Rivers. But one thing that these guys do is they're constantly talking to their teammates, Peyton Manning would always have his head in the book, going over plays. You know what Cam Newton did? He had his towel over his head, sat all the way at the end, all by himself. Here you are, you're a second-year player. Now keep in mind, he had an excellent rookie year, went to the Pro Bowl, but you're a second-year player, and you're not even communicating with your team. You're sitting there all by yourself on the side, towel over your head. And then a lot of times when players come in and out, they give each other high fives, say something. Player went up, did the high five to Cam, head down. It just totally unacknowledged the player. It really rubbed me the wrong way. And then last year there was Kelvin Benjamin said some things publicly, and then during a preseason game between the Buffalo Bills and the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton went up to confront Kelvin Benjamin. And some people thought Benjamin was bad in the exchange, but one thing that really bugged me is Kelvin Benjamin was working with a ball boy or an assistant coach. Cam Newton just went up to the guy, didn't even look at him, and did this. The way he did that, the way he just did this little hand motion and didn't even look at the guy. He could have just walked up and said, hey, can I have a moment with him? Is Matt Ryan doing that? Is Drew Brees doing that? No, and these are better quarterbacks than you. The way that he handles himself, the way he thinks his stuff doesn't stink, at least that's my impression, it doesn't look good. And it just seems like he's more of a diva. Of course, if you know his press conference, he's always got a different style hat. It's a big deal. It almost seems like he puts more into his fashion sense than he does in his playbook. Boom, I just blasted you. But there's a lot of things about Cam Newton I don't like. Here's the thing. He's coming off of surgery. He's over 30, and they're still working on his throwing motion. Because I was just looking on ESPN, and the quarterback coach, I want to make sure really work on keeping his throwing motion in check. Because last year he had a very high completion percentage. But hey, you have your running back with 107 receptions. You better have a high completion percentage. Here's the thing, Cam Newton, even if you're a big Cam Newton fan, he's the 3rd best quarterback in the division. He doesn't have Winston's arm talent. Plus, he doesn't have a quarterback whisperer like Bruce Arians working with him either. So you can make a strong case by the end of this year, he's actually going to be the 4th best quarterback in this division. All right, second thing I don't like, and I brought this up before, is that you had 35 sacks, so you need to improve the pass rush. Well, you lose Hall of Famer Julius Peppers, and I could rant on about how good of a player Julius Peppers was. I think people don't realize what a great player. This guy's going to be in Canton someday, but he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. If he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, somebody made a mistake. And the problem is that Carolina's a small market, so he's not going to get as much love as a big name player from a big name market. But bottom line, Julius Peppers, do not mistake this, is a first ballot Hall of Famer. For those of you who don't know, he actually was the 2nd player overall. I want to say 2006. I should have looked this up before, but he came out of North Carolina. He was actually a phenomenal basketball player. North Carolina, excellent basketball school. But he really realized that he had more potential to be an NFL player than a basketball player. And I think he said this after a couple of years after he was drafted, was that basketball was his first love. It's funny because as a Chiefs fan, Tony Gonzalez said the same thing, and he's a Hall of Fame tight end in his own right. So But here's a guy who's just such a freak in nature as an athlete. Actually, a couple of years in his mid-30s, he was actually playing outside linebacker at 6'7", 280. The guy just, I cannot say enough about how good of a player he was. And keep in mind, now I'm not saying anything negative against Mario Addison, who is the Panthers' leading rusher, but last year, if you got Peppers on one side, Addison on the other, which one are you more worried about? Even at 38, I think that teams were more concerned with Peppers than Addison, and that Addison's a very underrated player because he's had, I think, 30 sacks the last 3 years. Excellent player, team's leading sacker last year, but this is another thing I'm worried about is your leading sacker from last year is Addison, who's 31, 32 when season starts. And I should look that up. I'm sorry, I may be mistaken there, but I know he's 31 last year. And then you got Irvin and McCoy both over 30. And basically you're counting on 3 guys over 30 and a rookie to replace a Hall of Famer and to improve from 35 sacks. And I've said this before, you're going against 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So I don't think they did enough to improve the pass rush. That's just my opinion. Now, if Burdens comes out and he has a dozen sacks as a rookie, I'm wrong. But bottom line, you're counting on a couple guys that are over 30, a rookie. And the third thing I don't like is the 3-4 switch. All right. You like the pass rush, so you're tweaking your defense. That makes sense. But Ron Rivera has been the Panthers coach since 2011, a long-time defensive coordinator. Now he's changing his scheme. Now he's switching things up. It more seems like desperation. And I'm stereotyping, but the difference between the 4-3 and the 3-4 is a big difference. Is that in your base 3-4 set, you have 2 inside linebackers that stay inside the box that take on blocks. Well, your best player is Luke Kuechly, and that's not what he does best. If I'm an opponent and I got a chance to get an offensive lineman blocking Kuechly, I want that. But the thing is, though, in the past, what's made your defense great is you get some good pass rush. Then you got Luke Kuechly going sideline to sideline, making every tackle on the field. And that's what he does best. So putting an extra middle linebacker in there, only 3 linemen as opposed to 4. You're going to have blockers that have a chance to get on Kuechly. Plus, you have Kuechly inside the box. You don't have him going sideline to sideline. Now, keep in mind, I'm fully aware that most teams don't use this old school 4-3-3-4 method, and that most teams are playing a nickel. I'm fully aware of this. But bottom line, even with this scheme change, and even though he's going to play primarily nickel, it kind of takes away what he does best, and that's going sideline to sideline. I don't understand the switch. I personally, why not just stay with the 4-3 and get some different pass rushers? Okay, McCoy, he played in a 4-3 his whole career. That's what he does best is splitting the gap. Irvin, he can play a 4-3 as well, but you could have signed Justin Houston, same type of player, but he's bigger and better against the run, and he also provides a way that you don't have to have a blocker get your star player, and that's Kuechly. So I don't really like this fit. So kind of recap what I don't like. You have your star quarterback, Cam Newton. I'm not a fan of his. The diva personality, the limitations on his passing. Let me ask you this, all right? You're down by 11 with 5 minutes left, and you're going 4-5 wide. Who do you want throwing the ball, Cam Newton or Will Grier? Dead serious, because Will Grier did that 4-5 wide receiver set at West Virginia really well. I'm almost thinking I'd take the rookie over Cam Newton. Now, keep in mind, Cam Newton can do a lot of things Will Grier can't, but that's just kind of my point, though. Okay. You have pass rush issues. And then the defensive switch really doesn't make a lot of sense to me because you're taking away Luke Kuechly's ability to do what he does best. So, now I told you to stick around to the end where I'm breaking down the Vegas over-under. And if you should put action down on the Carolina Panthers, the Panthers is a little unusual because the number went from 8 to 7.5. Right now, if you bet over 7.5, it's negative 140, which means you have to wager $140 to win 100. But if you want to do under 7.5, that's a plus 120, which means a $100 wager will win you 120. So here's the thing, because it's negative 140, actions are high on the over. If I'm going to bet on the Panthers, I'm going to wait till it jumps up to 8, and then I'm going to take the under. But if I do take the under at 7.5, I'm getting good odds because it's plus 120. Because when I break down the Carolina Panthers schedule, and I had it right here, and I am so sorry, folks. I dropped the ball. Okay, here it is. When I break down the Panthers schedule, it's very favorable in the beginning. All right, the first 6 weeks, and then you get bye. Okay. Home games against the Rams and the Bucks, you split that. Road games against Arizona and Houston, you could split that. Jacksonville at home and at Tampa Bay, you have your weakest divisional opponent twice in the first 6 weeks with a new coaching staff. Realistically, you're looking at 4-2. That's good. Here's the problem. After the bye, I 3 wins max. I mean, after the Redskins game at home in December, you got at Atlanta, Seattle, at Indianapolis, and then the Saints at home. That's 0-4. All right? I mean, that's 0-4. What you're hoping for is that the Colts and the Saints are going to be in a position like the Saints did last year. They put in all their backups. That's what you're counting on in order to get to 8. I don't see that at all. So now I mentioned a few things I said bring on earlier. Well, the thing with Will Grier is that I have Carolina finishing under 500. You brought in a new GM last year, and normally what's GM do? You bring in your head coach. And after 2 consecutive losing seasons, what I think is going to happen is I think Ron Rivera, who I think is an excellent coach and a great defensive coordinator, and who will get another job, I think that they're going to blow this team up. Okay, I think 2019 is the last time you're going to see Ron Rivera and Cam Newton as Carolina Panthers. And the reason why I say this is you bring up the 2020 cap. Cam Newton's due $21.1 million, but dead cap is $2 million, which means you can cut him and only take a $2 million loss. All right. Now, you got Will Grier that you drafted in the 3rd round, completely different skill set than Cam Newton. So if he does get injured and you put Will Grier in there, you have to run a completely different offense. Wouldn't it make more sense if you bring in a new coach, you have a backup who can be there already ready to go? Now, North Turner has been a head coach before. If he likes Will Grier enough, you already got your starting quarterback. But 2020 also, I don't want to talk about this too much, but there's a lot of people that think that this is going to be a great quarterback draft. You have Jake Fromm. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the name. Tua Tagovailoa. Justin Herbert, people thought was going to be a top 10 pick this year. So there are players that are going to be available in the 2020 draft if you want to go that route. But when you draft a guy like Will Grier, this to me, when Carolina drafts a guy like Will Grier, you're saying, hey, let's prepare to move on from Cam. And that's kind of what it seems like they're going to do. So if for some reason they make the playoffs, you could still move on from Cam, but Ron is going to be safe. But what I really think is going to happen is I think this team's going to finish under 500. I think Ron Rivera is going to go, and I think they move on from Cam Newton. And I think there's a good chance that Will Grier is going to be the starting quarterback, or they draft a quarterback in the 2020 draft. So just basically, if you are going to bet on the Carolina Panthers, I think that the number is going to jump up to 8. But if you're really froggy and you want to do it, take under 7.5 because a $100 investment will win you 120. That's smart. So listen, if you're new to let me do this again. If you're already a subscriber to Andrews Football, you already know you're one of the greatest people on planet Earth. All your wildest dreams are going to come true. But if you're new to my channel, there's this button right down here. I blew it up. I also got some awesome playlists right here. So, bam! Hit that button. Become one of the greatest people on planet Earth. Check out my playlist. Now, Wednesday, I'm going to break down the Cleveland Browns. So, I'll see you Wednesday.